Okay, hello everyone. My voice finds you again. And so does my life find this world again. I wanted to speak about something I have observed and something I am considering, I'm noticing that is happening to the species, to the human species. You know, I have this sense that the human species, like a butterfly turning into a cocoon, is going through a metamorphosis process where all the cells of the caterpillar are dying, and when the last cell of the caterpillar dies, the first cell of the butterfly emerges. You know, behind, a lost ego, or one can say behind the last ego, there's a new world. Life is so fascinating because we won't always be here. And so, when we were, what was the value? I think that just like the caterpillar turns into a butterfly, the egoic, subjective individual, the character in the story of one's life, that character is realizing it was never a character. Known individually, conscious through dualism entities are realizing they are not either side of the coin. That means they're not just one side of the coin. Alright. Sorry guys, to continue. Alright. Sorry guys, I've had a very long and exhausting day. Drove a lot. I think I drove 6 hours today. Something in those lines. But anyways. You know, to be honest, where I can take this is the consideration that I'm observing that something is changing from the human species. What is changing in the human species can be seen on different levels. I'm a person who I have a sort of understanding of body. I use the trio of body, mind, soul. Even though I consider the body to be a visible dimension, the mind to be an invisible dimension, and the soul to be an inconceivable watcher of the invisible and visible simultaneously. I also consider that one's relationship with their body, with their world, is called spirituality. One's relationship with others is considered to be mind, and one's relationship with themselves is their body. So your body is your relationship with yourself as a being. Your mind is your relationship with other beings, and your soul is it's the relationship of you being something here and the world being something here. You know, there was this sage by the name of Swami Krishnananda. An incredible hermit, advanced communicator. And Swami Krishnananda said, once you witness the inseparability of the individual activity and the cosmic activity, meditation stops. What does this mean? This means that once you in this lifetime, I mean, most people have a relationship with their body and mind. Your relationship with your body, you know, is how your attention accepts a moment of your body. But one's relationship with mind is very different. And then one's relationship with the world, that's something I think every person has a private connection to. It's not something others can comment, hence the term self-realization. All right. So so pretty much I was saying that your relationship with your self is your body, your relationship with others is your mind, your relationship with the whole world is your soul. So when I say when a species abides by new alignments, by new inner alignments, what I mean is that the outer life and the desire for just an outer advancement is not fulfilling for an idea that is not physical. I mean, just take this in. Right now, let's say, I'll use myself as an example. Let's say I have a desire to I don't know, I'm trying to think, like, let's say, let's say right now, I desire to talk about the unknown, or I desire to, speak. I ask myself, who is speaking? Who is having the desire? Okay, because usually we desire a sense of self to be in the future. So it's kind of weird. We want to be something in the future, but who are we being that wants to be that in the future? I'm pretty much saying this whole time we've been treating ourselves as objects, but we've been treating ourselves as real objects, but an abstract subject is moving the object, okay? And it's moving it consciously. So that means the brain has an ability to turn itself into an invisible user of its visible reception. Okay, something in these. A part of me felt that, whatever, the importance of communication is, that the species is really alone. People wonder, they get upset that they are alone, or they experience, there's a difference between isolation and loneliness. Isolation is when you want to be alone. Loneliness is when you don't want to be alone, but you are alone. This is what I'm observing. Okay, guys, this is really the core image in my inner realms for this talk. I feel that the species is actually not an entity. And we're not actually physical beings, but the physical being is part of a process. Okay, somebody in the chat section is writing some next level stuff. I'm going to read it. It's from Friedrich Nietzsche, from Beyond Good and Evil. That's a very long book, if I remember correctly. It's like the audio book was like 10 hours. So, Somebody says Nietzsche spent much time in his writings performing a reevaluation of values, hoping to lessen the effect of hard morality on the development of higher men. Such a reevaluation of values is dependent upon the realization that hard morality is not an objective and universal morality binding on all, but is merely one type of human morality beside which, before which, and after which many other type above all higher moralities are or ought to be possible. You see, yeah, there is this view of what do they call it? Moral relativism. So your sense of what is right and wrong is, how would I say it? See, the human being is not just the human being. This is where everything goes wrong. When we think that a human being is just how they feel, just the thoughts they have in that moment, you know, and just the appearance of their existence. Really, when I think about it, I have never been one type of existential being, you know? Like, this body is changing. We're in a changing world, and everybody is trying to believe in the same things, not realizing that in a changing world, yourself changes. So this is why this is really the genius of religion, I think. You know, the genius of religion is that it found a common denominator, and it made the common denominator the inconceivable. So do you understand? All religious people on the planet, they may not conceivably be united, but they are. Their attention ultimately is to an inconceivable being, right? Even in polytheism, many monotheistic people may think like, yo man, these guys worshiping statues. Not the case. They are worshiping the presence within those archetypes. Do you understand? When you see a human being, they're not just their body, right? And what most people, they try to, you know, experience another person as a body, right? Especially, you know, as a man, you're kind of designed that way. But when one realizes that it's not just the body in the moment, then things become incredible. Do you understand? That means when you have a perspective of the being multidimensional, do you know what that means? That means no one you have ever seen has been what you've seen. But, and check this out, this is what the yogis understood. They understood if you look at someone else, you're using your memories from the past to familiarize their sight into something, you know, that's familiar to you, right? It's like a pattern. It's pattern recognition. But my fascination and where I think humanity is going, I think that our species has realized that it is not a computer, and civilization has been designed in some sense with a mechanical intention. Okay, and this is not just, you know, cultural engineers. You know, there's never just one cultural engineer. It's like all the human beings and where they look at. Really, if you want to understand, like, let me say it this way, right? I don't know how I have a familiarity of this. I don't know how I know this, okay? I don't know how this is familiar and some part of what I'm going to say right now about this is like how I know it, okay? But it really, when it comes to spirituality, think of it this way. Your realization of the body is that you're not just the body. So you're like, yo man, I'm not just the body because I'm being somebody, because I'm aware of my body. You see, what's the difference between like a tissue box on a table or like a cup of tea on a table and like a human being? They're both objects, true. They're both made of particles, true. But one being has a unique orchestration that allows it to notice its existence. Do you understand? We have made the mistake of thinking we are existing, but we are experiencing existence. And what is experiencing existence is unknown. Oh, humanity, what the future chapters of this earth are actually, you know, there have been revelations, known revelations. You understand? That means all religions, their revelations were through linguistic knowing. It was language. You know, I found it very fascinating that I thought, how could a prophet come and share a story or share a message before there was language? So language is one of the most ancient and fascinating technologies, and every human being, like I feel this when I speak, and especially whether I speak in Farsi or English, every word I say, or every concept that has an image, it feels to me like a room. Okay, it feels like space. It has a sort of spatial component to it. We think that our ideas are just language, images, all of this, but if you really pay attention to what is happening as imagination, you will notice that first of all there is an instantaneous being. So your attention and your existence as energy is being instantaneously. So you are being. That's what being means. Being means a position. Okay. And for example, in metaphysical or theosophical or mystical talk, it's kind of like some people are in a world and some people are in their world, and some people are actually from the beginning never in a world, right? You know, one of the most fascinating things that I have considered You see, guys, you know, I am not a person worshiper. I don't worship people. And I noticed this very early on when I realized that the truth of this reality has the potential to not be physical. So if there is a non-physical truth, how can a physical being convey it? How can a physical being teach you of something physical? This is why they say the guru, the enlightened guru, is never a physical being. It's a presence of reality. Do you understand? Everybody right now, let's just look at what suffering is. Somebody in the chat section said, you know, talk about self-realization. There's nothing to really say other than there's something here before you were here, and you notice it. And if you think you are superior to it, you can't notice it. This is the thing. So if a person, see, the earth is like, I don't know what the word is, simulacra. It's like a simulation mall. It's like a shopping mall of simulations, okay? And these simulations, due to our ignorance of how we are not the language that we speak, you know, it's like the simulations are linguistic. They're stories, all right? So really, a type of okay, let's say there's 3 types of enlightenment. Okay, this is, I mean, just matter of speech, okay? First enlightenment is you realize how fascinating it is that you exist at all, okay? Whoever you are, this is the first enlightenment, okay? You don't judge your body because you can't see your body from all angles. But because there is something here, so the first enlightenment is an acknowledgement or being grateful for the opportunity of existence. That means you've noticed you're existing. You're appreciating it. Okay? Now, the second enlightenment is realizing existence is not singular only. Okay? For me, oneness can be a very liberating experience, but it can also be a hiding place. You know, to me, I mean, not everybody. I mean, there's this beautiful saying in religion where it says only God knows what's in your heart. Like no other human being. Like imagine there was an artist, and this artist created a bunch of artwork, different artworks, and imagine one of the artworks goes to the other artwork and says, yo, you're drawn wrong. You know, and the artwork would be like, buddy, you didn't create me, God created me. Who are you to talk? Only God knows what's in your heart. Do you understand? So the thing is, just because a person is religious doesn't mean they're close to God. You know, you can act like you're close to the idea of God, but really, this might sound strange. A person is authorized by the other side, or I shouldn't say other side, I should say by the beyond. It's an authorization. Do you know? So So what it means is, if you are gentle, okay, let me get through the 3 enlightenments. So 1 enlightenment was you acknowledge your body, your existence. You're realizing that in this world, consciousness has a relationship of self to self. That means you are a self, some unknown self, and you have a relationship with your known self. Okay? Then, so what I'm trying to say is, like, you acknowledge your body, all right? That's it. It's a vehicle. I don't want to say it's a vehicle, but it's like an incredible Iron Man suit. But Tony Stark is not inside this Iron Man suit. It's Tony Stark is outside. Like, Tony Stark could have just created an army of Iron Man, you know? Like, he didn't have to be in the suit. You know, he was in the suit because he was bored. You know, there was nothing more exciting than that. It's the same thing with the Jedi, right? You know, I think everyone who watches Star Wars, right, at some point they wonder, yo, if I was a Jedi, like, what kind of Jedi would be? What kind of Jedi would I be? And something that's a hobby for me, I think about different moments in history, and then in my inner realms, I imagine if I existed in that moment in history, what method of fighting would I have? What sort of approach would I have to reality? Would I be like a berserker, you know, just like a bulldozer, okay? Or would I be, like, in some sense, an archer, you know, observing and then aiming and then, you know. Anyways, first enlightenment, your body is an opportunity. Second enlightenment, it's not just existence, you have access to your inner realms. So once you notice, see, so many people, this broke my heart a little, right? I noticed that so many people have gone to these enlightened gurus, and the enlightened guru has told them you should have no thoughts. Like, that's so wrong, okay? Let me tell you why. Because you thinking you are a you that has a thought is a thought. So when you try to have no thoughts, you're actually being a thought trying not to have a thought, and it doesn't work. So the idea is not to have thoughts. That's not natural. The idea is, this is really, I think, the idea behind meditation, that you watch your mind like what you are, like a cinema. Like, I don't know if whoever's listening, if you've ever been to movies or if you've ever seen a movie. When you see a film, you're like, your attention transports you into a cinematic language that your emotions make real, okay? You know, I went to film school and I realized, you know, I've been experiencing a cinematic language all these years I've been giving these talks, you know? There is a cinematic language. This cinematic language is how the world is moving faster behind your eyes than in front of it. So if you try to stop your inner realms, it's not possible, because it's like you going in a jungle and being like, I'm gonna keep my eyes open and not see a single animal. You know, it's like you've gone into a place where it's filled with animals. You're in a world where if you look at anything for a while, you're probably gonna get some idea about it, you know. For example, like women, some women, not all women, but some women think, for example, men are just, you know, just functioning on a physical level. You know, like I've heard women say, for example, don't object. I haven't heard a woman say this to me, but I've seen it in, like, I don't know, movies or something. You know, and it's like the woman says, don't objectify me, right? And the guy's like, oh, like the guy doesn't say anything. And I always thought, like, the guy should say, don't subjectify me. Because we are actually doing both. These are dimensions of our being. Do you understand? Like, it doesn't matter if I think the world is good, if I think the world is bad. Does it change my body's existence? I mean, like, the body's just existing on some level, right? The body is a conditional reality. We're like this being that is experiencing 3 dimensions of itself. Its body is very 100% like conditional. Its mind is like 50% conditional, 50% unconditional. And poetically, the soul is 100% unconditional. This is why nobody can understand it. Okay? even in really certain monotheistic religions. I don't want to say you can't understand it, but I want to say like there's a reason why they say the soul is the secret of God, because it is it is one of the expressions of an inconceivable being. Do you understand? Like, at least through the monotheistic lens. Nowadays, I noticed that on news, like online and all of this, you see a lot of people kind of like go towards religion. Okay. And let me tell you why. A human being in 2023 will go towards a metaphysical possibility rather than a physical impossibility. How do we know that consciousness wasn't a field of activity where everything in the cosmos began to become active in? How can we say that our consciousness is just from our body? Like, it's like our consciousness is getting influenced by abstract and real events. If we wanted to say what is reality, reality is a world that you can interact with and influences you. Okay, for example, why do you think they call it virtual reality in cyberspace? Okay, because it's you can have a real experience with something that is not real. Now, we are in this existence, and what's funny is the ancient yogis treated life like a virtual reality. They would say before people were like, yo, it's a simulation. Do you understand what the ancients were so ahead of everybody who thinks in simulation theory? They would say life is a dream. Now the word dream has just turned into simulation. It's the archaic revival of an ancient wisdom in a new format. Reality is as real as something can happen. You see, we're in a changing world. That's why potentials exist. If life was a photograph, an unchanging world, there would be no, like, what advancement in a photograph? The issue is that human consciousness is experiencing reality as a film, what people are accepting reality as a picture. That's the problem. Everything is an unknown verb. We're trying to know ourselves as nouns here. Somebody says in the chat section, the alchemists say that everyone forgets themselves upon death except heroes. They retain their personalities. The Taoists call it the immortal embryo. Oh my God. Well, let me tell you this. If you think you are something, it makes sense that most likely you will be that, right? So we realize that in life, okay, why are there so many people saying law of attraction? Why are so many people saying affirmation? One can see a prayer, even the repetitive cycles of prayer, as a sort of affirmation. But what it is we understand while we're physically in life that our mind leads to the opportunities we become. It finds the opportunities we become. So I thought about like giving talks, and then I went on this path and I gave talks. I manifested something that didn't exist. It started in the inner realms existing. I trusted it, I had faith, and then I brought it out into the outer realms to a certain point, like 1/5 of it. So what I'm trying to tell you is if we follow this idea that while you're alive, you have a body, mind, let's say soul, like you're a multidimensional being. And so you use your mind in life while you're alive to manifest reality. Somebody wants to drink water, they go get their mind gets a vision of getting a cup, filling it up with water and drinking it, and they just go and follow it up. What I'm trying to say is, if while you're alive, you use your mind to manifest, where your attention goes, it kind of becomes your reality. So if the mind is not a physical event, as for example Rene Descartes suggests in Mind-Body Dualism, it could be that after this life, your personality is based on your attention and intent. Do you see? People think that they're being, sure, like your conscious mind experiences yourself anew, right? But it's also like a momentum that your nature, and believe it or not, your heart space is building. People misinterpret the renunciation of the ancient mystics. They were not renouncing physical reality. They were renouncing their inner realms. Okay, the inner realms is the dream. Right now, I'm not renouncing my inner realms, I'm using it. That means I know I'm not my thoughts, because they come and go. You know how many thoughts I've had on who I am? How can I be all of them? So I'm neither of them. You see what I'm saying? I don't know, but I think the concept of a thought is like an imposter in consciousness. Our body experiences itself as a part of the moment. Our mind experiences itself as the whole moment. Our soul seems to be the potential of the mind. Like if the mind is the potential, if using your mind leads to the potential of your body. So I'm saying, like right now, human beings, by thinking and then doing something, they're actually using an invisible dimension to move their visible dimension. Now I'm saying, if you wanted to move your invisible dimension, you would have to realize you're not your invisible dimension. Right? So first you think you're visible, then you realize you're not just visible, there's also like your inner realms, like abstract inner life that's going on. And then once you realize you're not invisible, then the question is, what is neither invisible, neither visible? And the answer is inconceivable. So this means all human consciousness, at the back of your mind, an unknown force is moving you. This doesn't mean, I don't want to say this is an idea of God, because if God is an inconceivable origin, how can we conceptualize it? Do you understand? To me, there's an ancient Cherokee saying, which I think best is the incredible metaphor for language. The quote says, "When I point at the stars, do not look at the tip of my finger." When you are in a world, if you want a specific thing in this world, you're looking at the tip of the finger. You see, some people take literally what happens to them. But one cannot tell if what is happening to them is happening to them or is happening because that moment is necessary. I'll tell you an experience. Years ago, I was getting on a flight. I don't remember exactly what. I think I was going to India, actually. So on this flight from Canada, I'm waiting in this airport line, to go into the plane, and there's these two gentlemen. I was younger at the time, and there were these two, older gentlemen, and they start saying, like, one of them started saying something to me, right? And it was like a terrorist joke, okay? But it was like indirect or something, right? And I remember it's like the guy said that, and the other one laughed, and they were both looking at me, and I just silently just watched, When I get to the line where the lady's about to press my ticket, I mean, I got a bit upset, but at the same time, internally, not expressing it externally. So the moment I go to give my ticket to the lady to scan the ticket, and I go in my economy class seat, the lady says, "You've been upgraded to business," and I just get goosebumps, And I don't know. Later on, I thought, did that lady see what happened? Did she overhear, or was it just coincidence or whatever? But it was so bizarre, because it was like something unnecessarily low happened, and right after something very like high followed up. So, and of course, human nature. You see, a human being is not a god, because this room is not for gods, okay? Divine can enter this room, but it's like we're sitting at the kids' table on earth, okay? And beyond here, the responsibility level of beings is not conditional existence, it's unconditional experience. On earth, you are actually trying to be a creature. But there are some beings that even though they appear as a creature, what is experiencing that moment is not a creature. It's a presence. Somebody would say, "What do you mean by presence, Mr. Within? Do you mean like dehumanized alien shit or something?" No. When I say dehumanized, it could mean like animals, like lesser species. It could mean like something that is not the human idea or the human form. But it could also be a sort of, they had this view in ancient times, that space possesses or holds an unconditional intelligence. So our manifestation is actually balancing out the invisible in this place. Non-place. Place of the non-place. A non-place place. It's like, is that the wall? Yes, sure. Yeah. A non-place. Yeah, there we go. A non-local location. You understand? It's all about how you experience yourself. I've lived 31 laps around the sun, and I can tell you it's not just the physical existence here. You've been experiencing your mind. You've actually been the watcher of all your moments. That's why you can say my memories. But who's that my? If a sense of self is a memory, right? How can you say my memory? Is a memory remembering other memories? No. From the beginning, there is watchfulness. Okay, there is a natural mindfulness, okay, in just beings, organisms that abide by nature. I have had very profound experiences in nature. And one of the most profound experiences in nature was when I felt everything was in the know. Even the birds. I don't know, there was an experience I had in nature where I felt everything in the world was knowing what the world is, except me, who was doubting ideologically. That means the idea I had of the world was not aligned the inner realm view I had of the world was not aligned to the outer realm view, and I had an option to be like, yo, should I just ignore my mind? If even if I see something better in this world, should I just go fit in with everybody just to feel good? Do you understand? This is when I realized feelings, they are very uncalculated. But not that it's wrong. I'm not saying your feelings are wrong. Sometimes your feelings are like incredible alerts, you know. But what I'm trying to say is that how are you using your lifetime? How are you using, as an unknown experience, your known existence? I have realized that it's unknown. Intellectually, people can challenge me, they could say I'm wrong, please do if I am. But the view I have, I mean, when I say wrong, I mean, of course, every person's perception is limited. I'm 1 in 8 billion. But there's a value. Why else do we have mouths and ears? You understand? Like, why else can we communicate? There's a role, there's a purpose, there's an incredible future karma to all the communications that are happening here, right? People think it's just the result of the physical. No, reality can be the consequence of, as the Bhagavad Gita would say it very brilliantly, if I remember it correctly, the field of activity of the knower. So everything you experience in your existence is simultaneously in an unknown field when the activity of that unknown field is the knower. So it's another way of saying that if you, as a being, let's say you're a level 1 yogi, okay? So if you want to go to level 2, you have to wonder about the responsibility for non-physicality. For example, sometimes when I see people who have, of course, mental illness, for example, could be biologically induced. It could be traumas, like psychologically, a psychological intensity there. But what I've realized is that most people's mental illnesses are an absence. It's a lack of responsibility for their abstraction. Do you see, when somebody's mind upsets them or they suffer because of the way they're looking at life, it's like you realize there's other ways to look at life. You know, I've had days where I felt like an incredible loser. You know, I felt like, man, I'm garbage, you know, and then I was like, yo, the garbage can has a utility. Do you know, I remember I saw this picture. Man, let me see if I can remember this. Okay, whatever. Anyways, dear viewers, dear beings, I have no idea who you are. I'm just saying that there's an inner life and outer life. The species is getting bored of its outer life because it hasn't been responsible for its inner life. All those people who are on some level experiencing that they're getting closer to God, whether it's through suffering, you know, or whether it's through grace. But the idea is that if God is an inconceivable being, then what are you getting close to? You're getting close to your own inconceivable self. Your own inconceivable self is not a conceivable responsibility. So it's like a riddle. How can you be responsible for something inconceivable you're being? Do you understand why they say when it comes to God, sure, many people say believe. I feel the word belief is from the mind. I feel the word faith is from the soul. So when somebody says I believe in God, I'd be like, oh man, I believe in like cartoons, I believe in this, I believe in that comic book, that superhero, that action, like action actor, like the belief is just what you hold, but faith is what you are. Do you see? So those people have strong faith. They get a sense that, okay, feels like it's not just calculation. And let me tell you how 2023 was a year where I've given many talks on this. I think like 4 talks on this point I'm making here. But I became, the idea of God had a very profound emergence, a re-entrance into my life, but not in the sense of like, I was telling myself a fantasy story and believing in that fantasy. It wasn't my own illusion. I'm trying to tell you. I'm trying to tell you that I realize that there are infinite illusions. I realize there are infinite viewpoints. So if you're in a place that you did not create and there's infinite ways to look at it, how do we know which way to look? And so it's like an artwork, or imagine like an inventor made an android. The android software has come up, right? Or do you understand? The android is conscious, but it doesn't know how to move its hardware. You understand? And so it's like, yo, who created me? How do I know which way to move? Right? Do you see what I'm saying? And that's where the idea, like I reached this point where I'll tell you, for 8 years, I was pretty much every day analyzing and explaining and trying to solve, what I felt was the ultimate problems of my perception. Okay, the ultimate mysteries of reality. But after some point, I was like, what if it's not here to be understood? What if it's not like an equation we're going to understand? What if it's something we're here to do? That means when you see like a performer on stage, okay, that performer, do you understand? It's like there is no truth there, or the truth is just that moment the actor is on the stage or the performer is on stage, and then the performer leaves. You see what I'm saying? I'm saying that it's like there is no meaning. What's the meaning of the actor performer? What's the meaning of the performer on stage? What metaphysical, deep, existential meaning? It doesn't necessarily have a deep, eternal meaning, but its meaning is in how something is happening at all. Okay? That's beautiful to me. If one thing I say that about this world that really relaxes me, it's that there's something happening at all. Imagine a world where we had to move everything. We had to do everything. We had to create, imagine that we were on an empty rock and, we had to we built android animals, android birds. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's like you look at this world and you think, like, if man made it, what would it look like? The potential of man today. And then you think about, okay, what if it was inconceivably originated? An inconceivable origin is equivalent to somebody bringing a tray of tea and putting it on a table. And all the people were like, yo, out of nowhere, miracle. Do you understand? But the intent behind that miracle was not the same. Do you understand? Like, when the way we receive a miracle is not necessarily the same way the miracle happens. Anyways, guys, thank you for listening. Yo, somebody in the chat section, the person writing in the comment section is I don't know. I mean, people change their names and remove like their comments, but like somebody's written level 1 yogi, and then they're quoting Sadhguru. They say a level 1 yogi is one who has experienced samadhi but cannot retain it. A level 2 cannot come out of samadhi. And a level 3 can be in samadhi and also function in the world. Yeah, level 2 cannot come out of samadhi. I experienced that from 2014 to 16, because in those years my intuition, like, I wouldn't do a single thing without like checking with my intuition. I would be in places and my intuition would say leave, and instantly I would leave. I would be talking to a very attractive girl and my intuition would say no, and I would just see you. From 14 to 16, I was that zealous with my own intuition. Okay? And it saved my life in, I think, two situations. In Birmingham, UK, guys, it sounds like a very, nice place, but it's... Anyways, it's not a very, safe place. But my intuition, everything, it was literally, even I could tell you, I would be in the class. At the time, I was studying a bit of mechanical engineering, and and then I suddenly became like a philosopher. But I remember, for example, there was a moment even in those years where I was in the class, and the teacher at the end says, "Does anybody have a question?" And I didn't even have a question, but my intuition suddenly out of nowhere brought a question, and I asked. Do you understand? And then the teacher suddenly felt like this teacher I validated this teacher's existence. Excuse me. When Sadhguru, guys, says like level 3 yogi, let me tell you what I don't want to say theory, but my sense. My sense is your enlightenment, the way people think about it, it's not like that. Okay, it's not like something, you become something, you are something, you notice it. When you notice you are being something, then you don't have fear because you're already being it, right? So when you get an experience that like you're an unknown, you're watching your whole moment as an unknown presence, and your personality emerges if you put your intent and attention on certain things. But what I'm telling you is, I don't know if I was bored of my existence. I don't know why. Like even sometimes when I look back and I'm like, yo, have I really given like 2,000 talks and all this, right? And then I ask myself, like, what made me, like, what convinced me to just like for 8 years endlessly just do this, And you know what it was? It was a feeling. This might sound bizarre to people, but it's like, if somebody says what's the most incredible thing you can get in this planet, if somebody says an object, is that the right answer? Is an object the most incredible thing we can get in this world? If somebody says a subject, like idea, is a subject like the most valuable thing you can get in this world? Is it an emotion, or is it an awareness that, yo, something is going through life? Like whoever you are listening to me, you think you're just your body. Your body's been changing all the time. You say my birthday. You say my body, my mind, my soul. Who's that my? That my is inconceivable. Your inconceivable presence. It's watching. But it's not watching as a form, as a conditional entity. At least this is how I view it so far. So anyways, guys, this laptop has, what is it, like 9%, but 10% battery. So to kind of reach certain conclusion, I said about submissive natures and dominant natures. I think when a person becomes a political entity, they actually need to become a dominant entity. You need to be dominant when it comes to like battle. Okay? But when it comes to religion, or when it comes to the matters of the heart, for example, the word Islam means submission. People are like, what, submission to a ruler? No. You convert your egotism into a realization that I am not just moving, my world is moving. That's when God is not an idea anymore, because something is moving in the void. And so if somebody says, for example, this was something I remember, this was one of my biggest prayers anytime I would pray, and it was a consideration where there's, in monotheistic religion, for example Islam, there's a very beautiful passage. I don't remember it exactly, but it's something in the lines of, God can unseal your heart, but if your heart is sealed, you walk this world deaf, dumb, and blind. This doesn't mean analytically. This means you miss out on the actual being because you are compartmentalizing. You're dividing and conquering the being. Okay? So when I look at someone and I say, yo, this person is a bad person, okay, I'm compartmentalizing an unknown. I'm literally cutting up the cake into pieces and being like, yo, this piece is trash, you know. But it's not the case. One thing I've learned, especially when it comes to human beings, is that we're not like perfect machines. We're not perfect, but we have perfect expectations, and we suffer when the outer realms doesn't meet that inner perfection. Now, is this good? Is this bad? There is no good and bad, really. It's kind of like what you take out of it, what you get out of it. My father, years ago, very early on in my life, I have a twin brother. He came to me and my brother and he said, wherever you go, at least take whatever you hear, at least take one good sentence away from it, right? So if you hear somebody talk and you might not like what the guy is saying or whatever, at least try to find one thing, right, about what that person is saying that has value to you. And so I remember this thing that my father said. It kind of conditioned me that to listen to the whole thing when people would speak, just to see what of it I could was of value. You understand? But this world is so beautiful because it goes forth. I don't know what's more beautiful than that. I don't know what's even more attractive than an ability to just go forth. I think, when I think about who were the great people, when I was young, I was like a super shy kind of into inner, kind of stuck. I didn't trust the world, so I wasn't even trusting myself to be in the world, as a very shy person, very introverted person. Not that matters. Like when I was pushed, I'd be extroverted, but usually I had been used to observing. For example, they say this about twin psychology, by the way. So I'm a twin. So what this means is that in any twins you see anywhere, because twins are tends to be like this, that because twins are like two beings experiencing similar moments, because they're two beings, they sometimes find themselves in a moment where one of them is required. So I'll give you an example. So for example, imagine me and my brother are very young, and my father says, hey kids, pass me the hammer. And we're both twins and we're there, right? So there's an equality of opportunity. And then my brother goes and passes the hammer to my father. In that instance, I am being an observer. My brother is being an expressor in that moment. Do you see? I'm observing. And so this tends to happen that one of the twins is like the quieter twin. And it's not that they're quieter, they're just been observing more, even observing the other twin. Do you see? So this is something where when I was younger, I was like, man, I wish I was, more like my brother, But then I realized I was having the privilege of, even though I wasn't doing some things, my brother would go first to do it, but I was observing. That means I was observing something he couldn't observe because he was doing the act. You see, he was giving the hammer to my father, so as a twin, I was observing that. So I'm the the quieter twin, believe it or not. Anyways, dear viewers, thank you for listening. Share, subscribe, comment, like, if you please. And above all, this is what I'm practicing. I'm learning to honor how advanced our species will be. It's beautiful. It's incredible. There is the potential of the future is accessible in the inner realms. And believe it or not, that's how we bring it into the outer realms. So just observe your moment, and at some point in this life, I think every human being comes to this at some point, you're gonna see how cool it is that you're here. It's really cool. Like, whatever ideas you have, whatever you think you're going through, if you just take a moment and be like, yo, I'm here. There's something here. You know, that would really, that could cheer you up. Anyways, rise mankind, rise.